Okay, so hi everybody. My name is Vanessa Dion Fletcher, and I am a visual artist and artist-in-residence at the Jackman Humanities Institute, and I'm working with the Department of Curriculum, Teaching and Learning at OISE this fall. And that is my my kind of professional introduction. I guess to add to that, I attended the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, where I studied performance art, and I also did a BFA at York University. And yeah, so again, that's like my kind of professional side. I also like to introduce myself in the Lenape language as a kind of more personal introduction. So that goes Quinganao Loma, Ni Jishinzi Vanessa, Niha Venape Potawatame Okwao, Nonje Nahi, Shikokian Toronto, and Ishik. So in the language, I just said, I'm glad to see you all. My name is Vanessa. I'm from downstream. I live in Toronto, and thank you. Okay. So the first question I was asked was to just introduce myself and my work, and I thought to do that I could just take you through a little bit of my website, because my work is takes on a lot of different mediums, different approaches, and different themes. Yeah, I kind of an overview is a little bit challenging, but you can see here that on these top works here on the top of the grid are all made using porcupine quills in different iterations, kind of different methods and ways. Two of them are, this one is the quills are embroidered onto paper. In this work, Advancing Colors, there actually holes are drilled into a wall, and the quills are kind of placed into the wall. And that's a method that would typically be used on birch bark. And then this one, Shift and Focus, is a video of using the quills as an object under a microscope. So actually this whole section is all using the top 6 projects are all using porcupine quills in different ways. And yeah, quills have become a very important medium for me over the past few years. I love building this relationship with the animal, the porcupine that the quills come from. I love connecting with an art form that is being used by Indigenous people in North America or Turtle Island by my ancestors forever. Porcupine, people have made quill work in North America, really wherever porcupines live. So all the way from the East Coast, just wonderful like Mi'kmaq quill work traditions, kind of all the way across the prairies to the mountains. Porcupines, some of them live as far south as New Mexico. The porcupines live along the Rio Grande River. So they have a really wide-ranging habitat. And that meant that many people used them for embroidery and other forms of embellishment and art practices. Okay, then this middle line here is working out very well. Of Own Your Cervix at Tangled Art Gallery, Menstrual Accessory. And then this video, Inside Voices, is a series of work that I did about the menstruating body, how menstruation is thought about, or you could even say performed in my kind of contemporary life. And I link those ideas to reproductive justice and yeah, to reproductive justice, which if you're not familiar with the term, was coined by a group called Sister Song. And they were really, with that term, thinking about, people's access to reproductive health within a kind of social justice framework. So thinking about access to choice around when to have children, if to have children, thinking about choice to, to be able to parent your children in a safe environment, and the choice to have children. So within an Indigenous context, these things are very important because a lot of those choices and abilities historically and contemporarily have been taken away from us. So I'm using this material and process of menstruating as a way to think about some of those histories and present contexts. Okay. And then over in this corner, we kind of have a series of work that uses wampum as a theme. So we've got the relationship or transaction, which is a reproduction of the Great Lakes Covenantine wampum belt. And that piece takes a long time to talk about, but wampum beads were used used by many communities. Lenape community that I come from used wampum belts to make treaties. The Haudenosaunee use them. Many different communities, so they come from a particular shells and beads, and these beads were woven into strings or belts, and they record specific transactions or treaties. So there's a lot to be said there, and a lot to learn. And then the two other works beside them, the one where I'm writing and the one on the building, that is the Dish One Spoon wampum belt. And that one you may have heard about, and if not, it's a really good one to know about because here in Toronto is part of the territory that the Dish with One Spoon wampum belt covers. So that's an agreement between the Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee to share the sustenance of the land. And I would definitely encourage you to learn more about that wampum belt and all of the things that we have that it can teach us. There's a lot of really interesting scholarship around it. And yeah, that reminds me that I did my introduction, but I didn't do a land acknowledgement. So I did mention that I live in Toronto, and that's where I am today. So now is a good point to just thank and acknowledge all of the Dish with One Spoon wampum belt, the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Mississauga of the Credit River, the Huron-Wendat people who all have taken care of this land and this place so that I could be here today. So I think that that's probably a pretty good overview. My next question is, how does your work relate to the ongoing work of decolonization and reconciliation? So this work I think that all of my work relates to these themes in different ways. I would actually be interested as students are looking at this work to maybe see what their answers are to the questions, or to see what your answers are to the questions, to this question of how do you see decolonization and reconciliation in this work. But I can talk about, I'll talk about a couple of examples, and then maybe as you're continuing to learn about this work, you could also keep those questions in mind. So with the quill work, to me, it's a very decolonial practice, because for a long time, artistic practices were outlawed in this country. So Indigenous people were not always, in Canada, were not always legally permitted to make their work. So sometimes communities would have to do it in secret. Of course, there's also the history of our artwork and our ceremonial objects and different kinds of creative expressions being bought or taken under duress from our communities, and then or also stolen and being put in museums and other institutions. So if you think about that, so I think about making this work and kind of my, I guess, a journey to learn quill work as an adult, and as a process of decolonization. As in some ways it's maybe maybe a small action or a small process, that I think that continuing to develop the ways that we, that I and for my community are able to use quills in our artistic practices to help us understand ourselves, to help us understand and appreciate our animal relatives, and to express the beautiful aspects of life, and to celebrate the beautiful aspects of life is very important. So yeah, let's talk about some strategies for teaching respectfully in elementary school classrooms. So I wanted to share a couple of resources that I really like. One is the Resilience note cards by Mawa. So it's mentoring, this is the group that did it, mentoring artists for women's art. And this was a project that was put together a few years ago. And it actually started as collecting images from 50 artists, and they were put on billboards across the country. So it was a kind of exciting survey of Indigenous art by women, and I'm not sure if there's also trans and non-binary people included in this, but I would hope so. So here's an example of the card that from the work I showed you a few minutes ago, the wampum belt. So it's got it's a nice teaching tool, and then on the back it's got my statement and information about the work. And then there's also a a resource book that has, let's see which page I marked here. Yeah, so this page here talks about treaties and gives you some suggestions for how to use, how to talk about treaties in your classroom and some art ideas. This is another one. This work is by Heather Campbell. She's an Inuit artist, and Heather in this work is talking about climate change and plastic and different kinds of pollutants in the ocean. So I've seen that I think elementary schools, a lot of elementary school students really have, as younger students, have a lot of compassion for the natural environment and for animals. So I think that this is one that, in particular, that young students would really connect with. So there's that. And then the other resource is Medicines to Help Us by Christy Belcourt. And this is the kind of large, again, teaching resource. This comes with a book. The book you can buy separately. Really what it's based off of is this as a painting that Christy Belcourt did titled Medicines to Help Us. And the book goes through all of the medicines that are included in the painting. So we've got like how they're represented in the painting, another little image of the plant, and then some photographs, as well as where they grow in Canada. And you can see that blueberries grow everywhere. And I love this book because it talks about, it's got a lot of different names for all of the plants. So you can learn the Michif name, you can learn the Cree name, you can learn the Anishinaabe name. So by sharing this information, you're teaching students about the diversity of languages and the diversity of Indigenous people, which I would say is one thing that's really important. And then the other piece that I would say is important is that is to do quite a bit of research around what you're going to be teaching about, because it's I think that Indigenous education is getting a lot better than it has been in the past, but there's so much to learn out there, as you well know. So really trying to get an understanding, right, especially when if you're not teaching from your culture, your perspective, I think it's important to just know what resources you're using, try and, check in with either people, other people from that community, or, see if, using the internet, see if other Indigenous people are using it, try to find out if this is a kind of respected person, find out how other people are talking about the work. So I just think that this is a really excellent resource in terms of that research. And it's got a really great essay, a couple of really great essays at the beginning that kind of frame the work, which would probably be really useful for your learning and knowledge. And then you can kind of translate that to your elementary students. And then the also exciting thing about this resource is that, again, it kind of comes in this format of shiny picture cards that if you're teaching in a physical classroom that you could maybe hand out. It's also kind of works as a puzzle. I don't know if these two pieces actually go together. But I believe there's like 27 cards, so they kind of go together in a grid, which I imagine if you had, like if every student or most students had a picture that they could, place them maybe on the carpet or on desks or something, and you could kind of put them all together as a puzzle. which I always thought would be a really fun activity for elementary school students. And then it's just really nice that they can hold it and look really closely at all of these details. Christy Belcourt is really active on social media, so you can also look to, Facebook and Twitter to find out more information about her work and her activism, as well as, she often posts videos of her painting, so students could actually see the time and the work it takes to do all of these little dots. Yeah, I think those are two important or useful resources. And yeah, I think maybe from there, I would just say I'm really excited that you're all doing this work and this learning, and I hope that it serves you really well, because I really want all of our young children to have a good and fun and exciting introductions to Indigenous people through artistic practices. Anishik.